Good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scogle, and you're on the live boat. I hope you had a good weekend. I spent a little of it with some of you. It was not a bad one, right? Fairly decent weekend. As far as they go, you know what? Weekends don't mean what they used to. I think that over time, the weekend has changed up on me pretty dramatically. Probably has something to do with the fact that I work for myself. So you're not running back and forth, to work, and you're not going, oh man, I got the next 2 days off. Um, I don't very often say, oh, I've got the next 2 days off. I'll be really honest though. In the first week of September, yeah, I think it's the first week of September. Going to be taking a little time off, but just for a vacation, not for anything else. But which basically will mean hello, Lene. Which basically means I will not be doing regular shows for the time that I'm on vacation. I will definitely be making videos though, because it's going to be vacation. So, yo, Joe, good to see you, man. Well, get some sleep. All right, everybody. So. I hope you were here yesterday morning. If by some chance you weren't, because everybody's got busy schedules and you all got things to do. If by some chance you missed yesterday morning, we were talking about fear. And I was highlighting two types, right? This is just the recap of yesterday's show, that I was highlighting two types of fear. One is the fear when you're in the moment, when something is actually happening around you. And that could be emotional. Things could be happening around you, or it could be physical, right? Things could be flying at you. When that fear kicks in, oftentimes it's done to protect us, right? If you're a guy, there's a phenomenon that happens to us when a guy gets scared enough, and he's pretty sure he's probably going to end up in conflict of some type. The body does an amazing series of things to protect you, and the adrenaline kicks on, right? Things happen from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. Literally, the vagus nerve kicks so much part of every part of your body gets kicked in by this, like a light switch, and it's there to protect us. The trouble is, if that starts to kick on when you don't need it, right? That becomes a problem. If you're in that fight or flight mode, but there's nothing that brought it on, there's no reason for you to be in fight or flight, this is when we start to have problems. And that's the kind of thing I was talking about yesterday. One of the things that I didn't get to yesterday, which I think is kind of important, is courage. This is, I think that courage is one of those misinterpreted things in life and in sobriety. Very often, people seem to think that courageous people, they're fearless. If you're fearless, you're not courageous. You're stupid, right? I mean, I'm sorry. You damaged goods. Fear is essential. Fear is absolutely essential. In every aspect of our life, fear is essential. Fear clears things up for people in a lot of ways, right? If you can control it. If you can control the emotion of fear, it is a healthy, really decent thing to have in your life. Because if it's only working the way it's supposed to, when fear comes on, there's a reason for it. There's a damn good reason for it, right? That light switch didn't just get thrown. And when it does, there are metaphorical fight or flights, and then there are real fight or flights. And we just talked about the real ones. And really, I mean, not to get, you know what, who cares? We're all adults, right? If you're a guy, your junk is literally going to retract, right? Your onions are going to basically almost pull inside the male to do everything within their power to make sure that if there is something vulnerable on our body, that we're going to take care of it. We shrink the part of our body that has all of the important organs in it, right? Shoulders start coming down. We start hunching. Our chin goes down lower, right, to protect the throat because it's one of the most dangerous parts of our body if somebody wants to go at it. All of these things happen completely subconsciously. And if you don't believe this happens in boardrooms, then you've never been in one. If you start arguing with people in corporate America or on a playground, right, the same things happen. This is just built in, part of who we are. And there's no getting around it. There really isn't. So what you need to do is kind of become friends with it because it's going to come, right? You're not going to stop it. There's no chance in hell of that. So maybe if you could just learn to kind of steer it, right? And I don't mean I'm putting this thing over there. I just mean maybe I can take it a little off course so that it doesn't slam directly into the center of my life and destroy things. I mean, honestly, that's kind of how it goes down, right? It really is. It really is a gift, a huge gift. Trouble is, we're afraid of it. No, I'm dead serious. This is the fear of fear. This is the part of us that cripples us and super glues our feet to the floor. This is the thing that keeps you from walking into your boss's office in spite of the fact that you have had the exact same pay for 8 years, right? They have paid you the same amount of money for 8 consecutive years, but you just can't bring yourself to walk in there and say, you know what, I'm worth more money than this. The economy's changed. The dollar's not worth anywhere near what it was. And I'm going to need a hell of a lot more money if I'm going to stay at this place. And the good thing is everybody and their brother is looking for people because people don't want to work anymore. So I'm going to need a raise or I'm out the door. There are people that would never do that in 1,000 years. That is never going to happen because it is a very uncomfortable thing to do. There's confrontation there, right? Confrontation brings on fear, does it not? It does, 100 out of 100 times. If you start trying to confront somebody about anything, Thomas K., what a bummer. Thomas K. says, my car was broken into and stolen Friday morning. Sucks. Yeah, Thomas, that does suck. I am really, really sorry, man. I really am. That is brutal. Ghetto Joe. Ghetto Joe 83. Good to see you, man. Glad that you're here. So the subject matter of the day is fear. The fear of fear versus the fear that gets you ready to get punched in the face or punch somebody or run the hell away from whatever situation you're in because in a split second your brain looked around, counted up all of the threats, and said, nah, there's no way I win this. Right? Jack Reacher counts 9 guys and he goes, all right, I'm going to break this guy's knee first, then I'm hitting this guy in the face. I got news for you. That doesn't work like that. It doesn't. I mean, if you got a guy that's just really a savage, he might be able to take 2 people out. If he gets the first one, right, or if there are 2 guys that just have never been in a fist fight. But if you got 2 guys that have actually punched people, a 2-on-1, the one is going to lose. Right? It's just very difficult to defend yourself against 4 sets of fists. Eventually, they're gonna get a hold of you. But that adrenaline, you need that, right? That protects us from things. Again, if we're on the playground, or a prison yard, or if you're in the boardroom, the ability to control that, because it can get you ready, right? It can make you bow up. It can make you drop your chin and do all of those cool things. Or it can turn your legs to jelly. There are people who literally can't handle it, right? And under the toughest of circumstances will lose the ability to not go to the bathroom. Terror does a lot of things to a lot of people, right? Really frightening stuff. But the scariest kind, because 99 out of 100 people are never going to find themselves in that situation. They're never going to be in a situation that's so damn terrifying that it turns their legs to jello, right? And if they are, The vast majority of people's legs will stick underneath them, and they'll get ready to do what needs to be done. I think that's normal, but not everybody's built that way. There's an awful movie, an absolutely awful movie called The Court Martial of Eddie Slovak, I believe is what it's called. The Court Martial of Eddie. Someone's going to help me on this. There's somebody that's considerably better at this than I am, but it's a movie. And it's based on a true story. And it was the last American soldier to ever be shot for cowardice. And it's a brutally tough film to watch. As they're getting ready to take this guy out, they're playing "I'll Be Home for Christmas" in the background. It's honestly one of those films that's just absolutely horrible. But there are people who melt in those situations. Doesn't make them bad people, right? It doesn't. It just makes them somebody that's probably shouldn't go into to say the military or try to be a Navy SEAL. This guy's probably better suited for a different line of work, right? Nothing wrong with that. But if the fear of fear glues you into place, you can crap away 50 years of your life, find yourself hanging out at retirement age going, what the hell just happened? So wherever you're at in your life now, take a little time to grab the trusty notebook that you leave by your bedstand, or perhaps you keep it in the kitchen or whatever. But this would be the book in which you journal, right? And all of you are journaling because you've come to realize that if you're going to stay sober, this is probably the number one tool you have in your arsenal. And since this dude just doesn't stop talking about it, maybe I'll just journal in hopes that the captain shuts up, right? I get you. But start writing down things in your life that you're afraid of. And I don't mean spiders, right? I'm talking about the thing that nags in the back of your mind. Everybody's got some things that, I mean, they're not parked right here. You don't feel like they're really affecting your life. But there's something that every once in a while starts crawling into your head, and what do? You go, oh, crap, that's unpleasant. I'm going to push that out of my head for as long as possible and glue myself to the floor. I will procrastinate, right? I will put this off and put this off and put this off. Why don't you do it? Because you're afraid. And it's a hard one to admit to, and it's a hard one sometimes to figure out, right? But the reason we procrastinate is not because we're lazy. It's not. It has nothing to do with it. We procrastinate because we're afraid of something. There is something that is holding us up, and it's a fear. A fear of what? It's personal, right? Whatever your fear is, that's on you. It's going to be different for everybody, to be sure. But we all have something that we're terrified of, And if you allow these things to attach to your life and drag you down like anchors, it's going to greatly affect how you live, right? It's going to be a bummer. It really is. It's going to change your life. And you may not realize you're doing it. I think most people kind of do. I think most people realize it. The biggest problem with this fear of fear thing is that we all have, everybody who's listening to me, with very few exceptions, we all have the big bad, wolf in our life. We've all got that addiction, right? We've all got that substance. We have that disease, that thing that used to hang out in our life and absolutely ruin us, destroy us. Do you ever find yourself scared crapless that somewhere your drug of choice is standing right outside the door, just waiting to get you? Oh, I used to think like that constantly. I'm not kidding. That was that visual image of opiates literally just hunting me down, waiting for me. That used to keep me up. It really did, especially when I was incarcerated, especially before I got out. I had this unbelievable fear that I wasn't going to be able to stay clean. And I had been sober by the time I got to the gate. I had a lot of sobriety. It wasn't like I had been sober a couple of weeks. I was past the 4-year mark, not quite to 5, but past the 4-year mark. And so yeah, I had a decent amount of sobriety under my belt, but it was different sobriety, right? First of all, my mentor and the guy that helped me up until like the last 6 months, because I got transferred to a yard near home. That's how they do it. They in the BOP, because you're all over the country. They had passed a rule. I think it was actually part of that First Step Act that they signed into law that was supposed to help inmates, and a lot of it did. There was some good stuff in there. It didn't go far enough, and anyway, that's neither here nor there. We don't have to jump in on that. But it's hold on one second. Taking my fears out of my head for fear of manifesting them. And it's not that easy to overcome this. On top of all other mental gymnastics I have to get out of bed. I have to do to get out of bed. Absolutely. You know what? Look, there's no one ever said that this is easy. But understanding what keeps us wanting to stay in bed, I think, sometimes is a good chunk of the battle, right? A decent chunk of this fight is just starting to realize what it is that undermines our success. And I don't just mean staying off chemicals, right? I mean undermines our success in life, because a lot of us, especially people that, it's a cause and effect thing, the chicken and the chicken or the egg. Like, what came first? Drugs causing us to start feeling like failures, right? Causing fear, which drives us to do more dope, right? Which causes us to feel more, more like failures, bigger fear. And all of these things just sort of run parallel. And the next thing you know, you're 40, and 45 comes and goes. Like, I remember 45 being gone, and I was incarcerated. And a very close friend, a guy that I still care a great deal about, not just a convict, but a guy that I really came to care about, came up and said to me, "Hey, what's up, B-side?" And I said, "B-side?" I said, "What the hell is B-side?" He goes, "Well, you're on the other side of the 45. So for those of us of a specific age, right, 45s were single song records that were really small. They required a cool little adapter, right, that you needed for your turntable. But you could stack a bunch of them, and they would play one right after the other, which was kind of high tech at the time. But so on the and it was funny, and I giggled, right? Oh, B-side, I'm on the other side of 45. And about 15 steps to the chow hall, it ceased being funny. And I mean, it messed up my head. Snowblux Jewelry says, I heard one author describe getting sober from alcohol being akin to quitting the hot guy that wears all black that you want to hook up with at parties. I identify with that. That's funny as hell. Seriously, that's a very funny. That is a very funny comment, and it's a decent way to. It's a decent way to look at the whole fear thing. There's a reason that gurus, right? The people that pretend to be gurus, or the people that other individuals make into gurus. There's a reason they do things like the firewalk experience, right? Where you go out and they get these fire pits burning, and you walk on hot coals. You've probably seen this drill before. If not in person, you've certainly seen it on, videos or whatever. Tony Robbins used to do the firewalk experience. There's a lot of different people that have done it, but with insurance and the most litigious people in the world these days, they're not doing them much, right? The firewalks have kind of gone away, but there's other things that people do as symbolism for conquering fear. Hopping out of airplanes is a big one. There's a lot of people that, especially as they get older, and guys, because when we were young, it was like, dare me to do anything and I'm going to go do it. Right. That's just how we were as kids. It was a way different time. Right. It was a way different time. Toxic masculinity was thought of as a pretty cool thing. Right. There was nobody that had ever uttered those two words together in a sentence. But yeah, that kind of fear, hopping off things, it's great symbolism for people, because if you can conquer that, you can do anything. And people go, no, it's not the same thing. It is the same thing. It is the exact same thing. Why? Because your breathing is going to change, right? All of the things that are going to happen to you when you do it in real life are going to happen to you from a memory, right? You can juke your brain. And if you don't believe that your brain is easy to fool, then you've never watched one of those videos on YouTube where they film a guy that's on the top of a building, right? Say the Burj Khalifa or whatever, in Dubai, but he's hanging his feet off a building, or he's free climbing the side of something that's like 1,800 feet off the ground. And you're looking at this thing going, and your stomach drops, right? You get that, I can't watch. Are you telling me your brain's not smart enough to figure out that there's no chance of you falling off that cliff that you're looking at on your television? Is that possible? That can't be possible, right? That can't be possible. We're built better than that, aren't we? I got news for you. We're not built better than that. We're not. In fact, we're not even good enough to remember whether, or to figure out whether what we're looking at is a memory of looking off the side of the cliff. As far as our brain's concerned, it can take us back to a point in time that we were afraid and keep us living in that moment forever. Forever. Gamer, that's funny as hell. And that's in video games. You know what? As growing up where we did, is, we just grew up in the sticks, and we were all pretty gnarly skiers. Like, that's kind of what everybody that I grew up with did. And there are pictures I've posted up here, right? We did some pretty extreme stuff on skis, and hopping off cliffs into snow. All of those things, what it does to your body, right? If you were to take somebody before they walk out on stage to speak to 300 people, right? 500 people, whatever, a decent number of people. You go walking out there, and that moment when all of those physical things happen is no different than a guy that is, 30 yards up from the top of a cliff band, and he's just going to drop his skis down and, throw 11s right off at the end of it and just huck off into space. The feeling before doing both things is identical. And I promise you, this number up here doesn't really understand the difference between them. Carl Walenda, the Walenda family in general, right? Carl is the one that, the old man though, yeah? Carl is the one that fell, I think. He was in between two buildings. Was he in South America? Help me out on this one, Lux. I believe he was in South America at the time, but he was not a young man. He was in his he was in his 70s or 60s. He was an older guy, but he's walking across this wire, and they keep those poles that are heavy as hell for balance, right? And it's not like it was like it's cheating, It's just that it's supposed to help with wind and things, because you don't have enough weight to really hold you on that wire and keep everything kind of steady. But it didn't work out for him at all, and you see him start to go, and he realizes that he's in deep trouble. He kind of goes down like he's almost going to sit on the wire. He's going to get one leg on it and hold on until it's, and then he just sort of rolls back like you would have as a kid, hanging with your legs. But there's, he was just too old to be able to hold on like that. Like he could definitely walk across that, but I don't think he was doing any chin-ups. So it was a very disturbing thing to watch. I was a kid when that happened, but that was one of those things and it was on Wide World of Sports. They were filming that stuff. You know what I mean? Like that thing, you would see it on television, and that was pretty rare, Now you got instant access to everything, but when we grew up, it was just really, really different. But I'm telling I guess I'm speaking to the people that are not here, because most of the cruise is Evel Knievel. I want to tell you something. Evel Knievel may be the coolest man alive. I mean that he went to a Winter X, like a snow competition where people were doing doing backflips and things on skis and on snowboards and all that, and they did this like big tribute to him as the godfather of extreme sports. Oh, you found out about it from a Stephen King story. Nice. See, reading, it broadens the horizons. It really does, right? The more you read, the better off you are. That's just the truth. Seventh, for a Monday morning joke, just to start off the old, smaller babies may be delivered by a stork, but the heavier ones need a crane. I like it. I like it. So, I remember the Evel Knievel toy motorcycle that had a zip to make it go down a ramp and jump. Came in two varieties, Will. There was two of those, yeah. You had the pull version of it. Very cool. The second one, you took the bike and you jammed it onto this little platform, and the back wheel would kind of be a little bit off the ground, right? And the bike would literally like stick into the side of this little ride. And then you'd start cranking this little wheel on the side. And of course, as a kid, you really figured the harder you cranked on this thing, the more impressive what Evel Knievel was going to do, right? And he could there was really only two things he was going to do. And both of them required him flying across the room and hitting the wall hard enough to make your dad upset. Oh, man, we played with those. Oh, did we play with those? But the other thing is, because his hands were locked onto there, sometimes his helmet would end up on the front fender, which, at 6 years old, that would just put you through the moon. It was the coolest thing in the world to look at. He's flying across the room doing a headstand. And then, of course, slams into the wall to make your dad angry. Boy, oh boy, did I play with a lot of those. When I was growing up, every single kid that I knew had one of those. I'm not exaggerating. I did not know a boy in the town that I grew up in that did not have the Evel Knievel stunt set. Yeah. I used to love the Demolition Derby versions with the ripcord. Yeah, the ripcord was this is another thing that, they don't, the 70s rocked. Look at this. Monk gets it, right? Monk gets it. Tommy Bird, hey guys, sorry. I'm a bit late this morning. It's all right, Tommy. I'll be really honest, man. For people that used to be addicted to drugs, 30 minutes late, I don't even know you can call that late, right? I guess that depends a lot on what your drug of choice is. I'm not bagging on anybody because we were all drug addicts, but you guys that were addicted to meth, I think once you become a meth addict, the first thing you do is take your watch and throw it as far away as you possibly can, right? And then get you a black piece of tape and put it over the front of your phone so you can never actually see what time it is. Because anytime you talk to somebody that was doing that drug, they're 15 minutes from your house. Oh, yeah, dude, I'm leaving right now. I'll be there in 15 minutes. You might not see them for 3 weeks, but every time you call them back, they're going to go, oh, yeah, dude, I'm sorry, man. I got caught up at this dude's house, but I'm walking out the door right now. And that can go on for a week. Really frustrating stuff. I was born in 79, so the 80s were pretty good too. No, the 80s were fantastic. The 80s were fantastic. You will hear me talk about some people from my past on here. And I don't use names because these are people that don't deserve to be outed or any of those things because like they didn't do anything wrong, right? They have no reason for me to smut them up or bring them in. But sometimes the stories are relevant. But my wife, the attorney, was born in 70. No, she was born in 80. But right around the same time though. Yeah, the 80s were fantastic. In all honesty, I think I probably preferred the 80s. Evel Knievel came to our fair every year as the final event after the Demo Derby, and every kid, regardless of gender, was a daredevil for the rest of the summer. Good old days of youth. You know what? If you had any idea how jealous I am that Evel Knievel came to your town, I'm not even joking. Like I'm disturbed. Wow. That's just insane. That really is. That's insane. I got to run into Evel Knievel. He sat at a table when we were at the. I was at one of the Winter X things skiing, not competing. I was doing demo stuff for Rosignol, but yeah, he was there and he was sort of signing autographs, and people were all going by and kind of tipping the tipping the hat, kissing the ring kind of thing. Cause he really is kind of he was the godfather of extreme sports. And you know, the crazy thing, like if you think about it now, there's a guy that is sitting on a laptop and he's putting in the wind speed, right? Let's see, the dew point is at 6.3, right? So the chances of precipitation, like everything is figured out. They've taken a blower and a broom, and the surface that he's driving into hasn't got a pebble on it, right? This is so perfectly engineered. And then the guy says, you're going to hit that ramp at 80 miles an hour, right? So get that exactly to 80, and you're going to land right on X on the other side of the ramp, which is, dead in the middle. It gives you plenty of run out. And the ramps are about as wide as two 18-wheelers, right? Evel Knievel had a ramp that was maybe 5 or 6 inches wider than his bike. It looked like you walked the plank off a ship, right? That's what it looked like. He had these long run-ins, and he's riding a Harley, right? There's not a 2 foot of compression on the back of these bikes. I mean, and he's out there in the morning with a spray can, right? They're spraying out right here. I don't know. I should probably go into that jump. But what do you think, guys? Oh, I'd go in there at about 70 anyway. I don't know, about as fast as you could go. There was nobody engineering that stuff. It was completely different. And he would absolutely rip himself to shreds, break his pelvis, right? The jump over the fountains at Caesar's Palace. When he comes down on that one, he hits as hard as anything you've ever seen. And he basically just, it splits him. And if you watch it, you'll see it happen. It's one of those things that gets played in slow motion more than any crash, I think, probably of my lifetime. But you see him come down and he hits, and when he comes back up, he's already busted. He's in such bad shape. And the guy just kept going. And of course, became hopelessly addicted to pain medication. He had a real serious problem with pain meds. Which is, obviously, think about it, makes sense. Parents allowed us to be kids. I'll tell you, you know what? I'll just make people angry. Why not? You know what I mean? People bail anyway all the time. We'll give them a small other reason to bail. I'm not, but truthfully, in my humble opinion, we are destroying the boy, right? The boy as an entity. We're doing everything within our power to get them off the planet, so that we just have an army of little girls, and the boys. We're not going to let them go outside, and if they go like this, right, we're going to expel them from school. Holy crap! I would never have made it out of kindergarten, right? You played cops and robbers, right? That was just part of growing up. And what they've done is they've put all of these values of 30 and 40 something people who decided all of these things in college, and they're going to put it onto your kids, right? Thank God I got my son through that before this crap happened. Hey, thank God I got Spanx in under the wire, right? He was close, man. He was close. My boy got beat up and jumped on trampolines and yeah. Spanky went out and got crazy. Threw backflips on skis, didn't care. My boy was an absolute madman. And I did everything I could to protect him. He's still got the stitch over the eye, right? That every Scoville took, at least a couple of stitches over one or two of the eyes. It just happens, right? It's a boy thing. That's just different now. It really is. They're doing everything they can to get rid of boys. So I'm on my dad's side. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. We were worse than any boys. In our generation neighborhood, yeah, my dad wanted boys so bad. I got sports stuff for Easter. I dig that, though. I dig that. That's actually pretty cool. You know what? The sports thing, I don't know, man. My dad was super into to sports. And I don't just mean watching them. The old man was super into to just about everything. He would play in a summer league basketball. And he's my age, like the age I am now. He used to play summer league basketball, and he played tennis at that point, and a lot, a couple of sets a day, every day, all the time. He was super into it. And then he also played in a lacrosse league, right? A summer lacrosse league. And he was, I don't know, my brother would probably tell you exactly how old he was, but he had to be 50. If he wasn't 50, he was damn close. And he was a madman. He scored goals like crazy. And we had heard all the stories, you know what I mean? But you think of, when you're a kid, you think of dad, like he grew up in a different, universe. You never thought of your dad as just, you thought of him being so much older than you. He's already lived 200 years of experience, right? By the time you're able to talk, you're like, that man is Superman, right? That man can do anything. And it was, an odd phenomenon, but my dad was just super, super into athletics, and skiing was one of the things that he was really into. The reason that I became the skier I did was because when I was a little boy, they did not have skis for kids yet, right? Literally, they had not yet come out with like the Rossignol Smash Junior. That's like the first one that I can remember as a ski that was made, precisely just for kids. So what used to happen is my dad would take a pair of skis and saw them off. So, skis are supposed to have, camber, right? They're supposed to be concave and convex, right? That wasn't happening. So he'd literally take a hacksaw and cut this thing to length. And then they would mount bindings onto them, and I would get shoved out the door. Yeah, that was it. And when the first time I got a pair of skis that were actually built to my size, like they were, and they had step-in bindings, right? This was high-tech crap when I was a kid. But I was blessed to do all of these activities and all of these things with my dad, so it was just understood that, you were going to get hit in the face with a baseball, right? That was going to happen. You were going to, all of these stupid things that were just part of being a kid. You were going to take some stitches, you're going to crash bikes, all of those things. They just happened. My dad always said I was the son he never had, and I have 3 older brothers. I was the baby girl, but I played all the club and school sports. I love that, Kelly. Very cool. Very, very cool. And you know what? Some of those things, you don't think about it at the time. You really don't. It just seems like, you're just having fun. But they end up being things that shape your life in ways that, honestly, you'll never forget. I remember talking to my son, and I had taken him skiing in Snowbird, Utah, and I had taken him up on the tram, right, which takes you up, like 4,000 feet of vertical, right? It takes you way up the mountain, and it takes you up there quick, but it's tough terrain. Now, obviously, always they've got this very wide, very safe kind of meandering trail that you can take, and it's awesome because it's, you're skiing probably 3 or 4 miles, from top to bottom, and as a dad, it's fantastic because you just take your kid and you ski behind him, and it was awesome. But I had my boy at the top, and I let him get, I don't know, 30 or 40 feet in front of me, nothing. And he just goes and bangs a left and goes right over to the edge. And he stops at the ridge, and my heart went into my throat. I said, "Oh, Calhoun, don't move. You scared the heck out of me." And he looked at me, turned, and hopped off the side of it. And I'm talking about like the first 5 feet is vertical. You literally have to hop off of this little cornice to start down onto the trail that he's going on. And like my heart, I thought I was going to die. I watched my kid, who was maybe 5, 4 or 5, and I watched him hop off of the side of this, and I thought, he's going to die. I got to go home and tell his mother that he just jumped off a cliff with skis on. So I went and hopped off the edge of this. And as I was coming off of the side, and I'm not doing any tricks, like I'm trying to, pre-jump this thing, take your knees up into your chin so that you can get your skis back down fast and start trying to catch up to them. But as I'm coming over the edge and looking down, my boy looked like he was a football field away. Like he was just this speck. And at this point, I can now hear him, and he's screaming like at the top of his little lungs. He's terrified, and he's a kid, right? What he's learned is kind of the edgy wedgie technique. If you've ever taught anybody or seen anybody, taught skiing with the whole, you're going to go with a slice of pizza, right? You make the wedge, right? Or you make French fries. My boy was making French fries, and all he knew was to put pressure on one leg or the other. So he's kind of making these huge sweeping GS turns and screaming at the top of his lungs. But I caught up to him, thank God, before he went into the trees or did anything else. But I hit him from behind, right, on a dead flyby, and just sort of bear hugged him and picked him up. And I was like, hey, gotcha, right? Take a deep breath. And I started slowing down and putting the brakes on. And I think it was probably the first really traumatic little thing that ever happened to him. That first really serious dose of fear, because it is so imprinted on him. He'll tell me the story every once in a while. He'll talk about how he remembered that day and what his memories of that were. And that kind of crap affects you for the rest of your life, or doesn't. I promise you it does. I remember being on a chairlift with my dad. And in fact, it happened once with my mom as well. But, you have on these little ski suits as kids that are meant to keep you dry. You know what I mean? They're scotch guarded about 2 inches thick on stuff to make sure that water is not going to enter your little snowsuit. They're not, however, there's no grit to them. It's not like sitting with sandpaper, right? You're sitting on a chair, right? Lift that's just thick vinyl, right? With a bunch of snow on it. And then you're going to sit down with basically the same kind of material. And I just kind of started sliding underneath the bar. And I remember just being, because when you first get on, the chair swings, right? That's just the nature, because you're sitting on it. You kind of screw up that. So as it's pitching this way, I just started sliding off of it. And I mean, we weren't more than about 10 or 15 feet off the ground at that point. We weren't like, first tower, but it sure scared the crap out of me, and it's imprinted on my life. But I just remember feeling my dad's hand, which felt like, it was the size of a car, but he grabbed me on the coat, and his hand basically covered from halfway up my back right, to the top of my little head. And he just sort of grabbed me and pulled me back up and stuck me on the seat. And when he did, I was sideways, and my skis were almost on him. And he's like, I got you. And he pulled me back up. I'll never forget it. And for the rest of the time that I was on this planet, I had that feeling that if things got bad, he was going to grab me. And, not everybody gets that blessing, right? There's a lot of people that have had really, really tough times growing up. When I talk and I say, I had great parents, man, I don't have any excuse whatsoever. There was really nothing that anybody did that turned me into what I turned into. I had the genetic predisposition, right? That's kind of what what the problem was. And then I was stupid enough to try drugs. And I was one of those people that the first time I tried anything, right? The first thing I tried was weed. And the first time I tried it, I thought, boy, where has this been, right? Why have I not been doing this for this long life? I know these 13 years that I've had on the planet. How did I manage to get by without this stuff? And of course, that just continued to get stronger and stronger, right? Trying the next drug, trying the next drug, trying the next drug, until eventually I landed. Yeah, we lost the genetic lottery. No question. Everybody here lost the genetic lottery, or almost everybody. We have normies. We have plenty of normies, actually. Once I did the interview with the queen, former queen of the normies, the number of people who reached out and said, yeah, I've been watching your show for a long time, and I've never done any. I've never been addicted to anything. We actually have a pretty big normie population, so I'm really glad we did that interview. Damn, I really need to get sober, but then I'll hear "Light My Fire" by the Doors or something like that. It's genetics for me too. It sucks. Stone Lux, I'm telling you, you know what? Don't beat yourself up, right? Don't beat yourself up. You have to realize that no joke whatsoever. You're fighting an uphill battle, right? You're swimming against a pretty serious riptide. And very often we start trying to swim directly into the front of it. And it makes us feel like we have zero control over our life. And it makes us feel like we're somehow a failure because we don't have the ability to control this. And the illustration that I like to use a lot is diabetes. If you had type 2 diabetes, you wouldn't be sitting around thinking, damn, I'm weak. You know, what a piece of trash I am that I can't, break down this sugar the way that other people can. It just makes me a bad person. It just means I'm morally bankrupt because I just can't control this whole insulin sugar thing. Right? You say it's not the same thing, Captain. Oh, no, but it is. Right? Because there's one type of diabetes that you're born with. The other type of diabetes you get because of lifestyle. Like you start drinking way too many sugary beverages and you start eating way too much. Now, if you do that, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get diabetes. But if you have that predisposition to it, if you have that genetic lottery for that, and then you live like that, yeah, you're probably going to get it. In fact, it's damn near a lock. Sounds familiar, right? Because it is. It's the same thing. The only difference is nobody would ever go, sugarhead, anything like that. Dextrose boy, can't handle sucrose. What's up, dude? Yeah, talk about him behind his back. Man, you should see the guy try to eat a candy bar. Weakling. I gave him 1 6-ounce drink Coca-Cola. It was on the floor. Guy just has no control at all. Had a 3-hour Zoom with the rehab department Friday. Most of it centered on the disease aspect of addiction and how difficult it is to manage. I was so glad. That's what they're educating families about. Yeah, good stuff, right? Good stuff. It's Dextrose boy. Yeah, it was the best I could come up with on short notice, Lux. I apologize. I was trying to come up with a good slur for somebody with with diabetes, but I just couldn't come up with anything else. Sorry. Becoming a vegetarian is one big missed steak. But I'm bummed. Say it faster. Say it faster. You got this. Sorry, people. You know what? I love that. Cherry Bakewell says, Christy, I learned a lot from your interview. See that? Good stuff. Good stuff. Lux says, I dig it. Lux, I tell you what, do me a favor. You know what? if it takes people 5 years from the time they realize that they probably need to get it under control to the time where they actually draw a line in the sand, that's fine. We come here loaded, come here whatever, but keep coming back, because what's going to happen, what happens to everybody, virtually everybody, is you hear something, and it doesn't necessarily need to come out of my mouth. It could be something that you read from one of the crew members. In fact, I think as often as anything, it probably is something that people read in the chat. But there's a light bulb that goes on, and all of a sudden you go, "Oh my God, you know what? This makes sense." And it's happened so many times. We've had people. I had a guy that used to email me about 4 times a week, and either really hungover or really, really drunk, and either really, really, "I love you, Tommy," or the exact opposite. And I was just a dirt bag, and, call me every bad name under the sun. It's, yeah, I don't care how long it takes. We don't kick people out of here for using. We don't run people off for being high or any of that stuff. That is the dumbest concept in the world, and they've been doing it forever. I mean, literally, think of how stupid it is. Sir, did you just come to an oncology center knowing you have cancer? Get out of here. What's the matter with you? Oh man, sorry, Tommy. Way to put my type 2 diabetes right on par with my addiction, Captain. At least you reminded me to take my my medication. I'm so sorry, Tommy Bird. Really, but you know what? It's maybe I need a new illustration. I've been beating that one for a really, really long time. Thank you. I'm actually tipsy at the moment. That's all good, Lux. You know what? This is the only thing I'd say, and I don't do the dad thing at all. I really don't. Or the older brother thing or anything. But I do drop this one. We just ask everybody between now and the time that you decide this is no longer going to be a part of your life, avoid just getting behind the wheel. Don't do anything that's going to cut this game short, right? Just take care of yourself, please. That's all we can ask. And Lux, if you're ever on the edge, you think you're close, you just drop an email to sober@myyahoo.com, right? Because we really do. It's the genuine article. We really do work to try to get people help here. It's not just a clever pitch. See, I never did the alcohol or drugs thing. No smoking. All I have left is video games, caffeine, and occasional snacks. Man, you know what? Listen to this. I gave up caffeine completely. I'm sorry. I gave up caffeine completely. And if you think that's easy, can I leave anything? I hope not. Oh, good. Thanks, Lux. That's all I ask. And I'm not busting anybody's chops. It's just the thing that starts, that makes me nervous. Oh, Kath is going back to school this week. She says, if I'm MIA, that's probably why. School is starting back up, isn't it? You know what? This time of year is really, really a huge thing, right? It really is a huge thing. There is this mindset of that whole back to school attitude that we have from the time that we're young kids. But when summer goes into fall, we just sort of narrow our focus, and you start to get this I care attitude. I'm going to change my life. It's probably a better time for people to actually make a resolution than New Year's is. I realize New Year's has got the cool number, right? It's the first day of the year, right? But everybody seems to be, Tommy Bird, kids started last week. Yeah, I think this is like the big push, right? This is the time. But from the time we're 6 years old, we just know that means that the fun of summer is over, and now we got to get to work. And I've watched it affect 3 or 4 different industries that I worked at throughout my life, and It does. It affects everything. That September, late August, early September, it's that back to school. Yep, Kathy says, yeah, exactly. You go into school mode. Yeah, I honestly think that's exactly how is how it goes down, right? You just get into it. And I don't think we're ever going to get over that. QG, we were just sitting around saying, where the heck is Quiet Girl? How dare she take 55 minutes and 54 seconds to get here? I'm just kidding. But we're glad you're here. Hope everything is all right. Yeah, exactly. See, Christy says, Quiet Girl, yay, you made it. You know what? Doesn't matter what time you show up. The fact that you show up is good. And it's great just to pop in and let everybody know you're all right. I love people that do that. They'll say, I can't be here this morning, but I just wanted to stop in and say hello to everybody. That's huge. To me, that's absolutely huge. Hello, Goddess Divine. This is your first time engaging in chat. Well, stop it. Is it really? That's awesome. Look at that. How cool is that? Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party. And you don't even have to turn your keys over or any of that. Pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Wait. So who can I email? SOBER. Sober at my Yahoo. Not Yahoo. MyYahoo.com. That is the lifeboat. Now, the lifeboat actually has about 4 email addresses that all ring into the same place, right? So that's one of them. Tommy Scoville is one of them. Captain Tommy Scoville is one of them. The lifeboat, I think, is one. I think if you send an email to anything that's even remotely close to the lifeboat, you're probably going to get us. Like, for real. We have a lot of different email addresses that all come back to the same office. But here's the deal, Lux. The reason that I say stuff like this is because I never want to start doing anybody's business out in the open. We do like a little bit of anonymity, but there are a lot of options for people whose problem is alcohol use disorder, right? What we used to call alcoholism or a drinking problem, right? Political correctness has now got us calling it a alcohol use disorder. I believe that's what they're calling it. The more syllables you add, the better, right? The more syllables you add, the less it seems like, it's really bad. If someone's a lush, not a lot of syllables in that one, and you go, ooh, right? Or someone's a drunk. If you use any of those terms, they sound kind of harsh. But if you just say, he has alcohol abuse disorder, right? Acute alcohol abuse disorder. And I promise you, if they can add anything else, they will. More syllables, less sting, right? George Carlin does a great routine on that. I mean, a great routine on that. Look at the mods. My mods are awesome. Lux says, I'm an alcoholic. It's fine. You know what? I'll be really honest. I've changed how I talk because of, I have found that there are people who are sensitive to these things, and I am probably insulting them often, and I don't want to do that. I always referred to myself and thought of myself as a junkie. I mean, I did. And, people say, well, you shouldn't talk about yourself like that. That wasn't myself. I promise you, that wasn't me. I don't know who the hell that was. I really don't. But before I quit doing dope, the person that I was an awful human being. The drugs really, it clouds everything. Your decision making, it makes it so that it is almost impossible to navigate, life being a good person, truthfully. All right, everybody. There's nothing to fear, right? Nothing to fear. What you need to do is sit down, get out your journal. When something starts to make you feel afraid, write down why. What about this is scaring me? What is the worst thing that can happen? Okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the 10? And what's the 1? Right? Write it down. Well, I'm afraid that my boss is going to fire me because he said something last week about, they may have to do some layoffs or this or that. Get out your piece of paper. Write down. What's the worst that can happen? Because we say things and our brain starts to believe them. We say things like, you know what? I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get kicked out of my house. My girlfriend's going to leave me. The only thing that's happening is that the boss is talking about maybe, laying some people off. But in our head, we'll take that out to the absolute worst final, case scenario. Maybe we should go the other route occasionally and say, what's the number 1 on that? The number 1 is your boss comes and says, the 3 part-time staff members we have, we're laying them off. Right? But you spent 9 days, didn't you? You spent 9 days in fight or flight mode, thinking about all of the terrible things that are going to happen when you get fired, right? When you can't pay for food and all of a sudden you're starving and, in your head, the house is falling in around you. Man, oh man, right? Put on a happy face. Try smiling a little bit. Seriously, it's not a bad thing. But every single time anything is jacking with your head, if you get a pen and a piece of paper, you will stop it. Think I'm kidding? Make it happen. Get a pen and a piece of paper. Write down what's scaring you. Write down why it is scaring you. You know what will happen? It will lose all of that power. I promise you, it will take the sting out of whatever's frightening you, especially if you start getting good at this little drill. What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? If he fires me, all right, I'm fired. Does that really mean I'm going to lose my house? Does that really mean my wife is going to leave? Of all those things going to happen in this environment right now, how long would it really take for me to go back and get a job in the same industry that I currently just got laid off in, or a job anywhere making the same amount of money? We are in a very unusual market right now where there are way more jobs than there are people to fill them. People don't want to work. But people literally will, first of all, they'll get frozen in place, right? That fear of what might happen, right? That fear of the potential fear or the potential thing that could happen will root you into place. So much so, you can't even grab a piece of paper and write down why you're scared. What's the worst case scenario? What could possibly happen? You're too rooted to the floor to even pull that off. Man, we're going to need an entire other show. You know who I blame? All you people. Your great comments, man. Cherry Bakewell says, journaling is brilliant. Boy, I'm telling you. It should be called the journal boat. Carousel delirium. See that? She's been lurking the whole time. Or she got up late. Could go either way on this. She is on the right coast. So, she really slept in. Saturday in for the session. Thank you for the morning inspiration. Got an artery checkup today. A little scared of medical facilities. Okay, perfect. Great example. All right. You start trying to analyze what it is about medical places that make us uncomfortable. Well, chances are we've got a few memories tied to it. And those memories are never pleasant. And very often, the first time that we get exposed to a hospital of any kind, we're very, very young, right? And you're going in, and very often you're going in to look at people who are really, really old and at the end of the road. And that's often a child's first exposure to a hospital that they can remember, once this thing comes online. Or if there's somebody that really remembers early memories, it's going to be getting stuck by a needle. I journal some, but it's too painful to even reread. Kath, you don't have to reread it unless you really feel like there's something in there you didn't get, that you didn't get. Or You relapse. You do something that is so out of character that you got to go, all right, I gotta go back through my notes and find out when this happened. When did I jump the curb? When did I start getting off of the path? Annette says, Kath, don't reread it till later. Yeah, like months or years even. Or some stuff you may never reread because there will be no point in you rereading it, right? You'll never get to that point where you need to do that. There are times where you have to. Usually for me, it's if my behavior is really skewed or if I relapse or anything like that, then it's definitely time for me to go back through. That was Squirrel. She's having no part of it. Then it's definitely time for me to go back through and figure out where the problem is, because the journal is probably going to hold that information. You will have written down exactly what's going on and why you ended up not reaching out to somebody and instead doing the whole relapse thing. Alrighty, people, that brings us up to the end of this year festivities. Yeah, you don't have to reread them, Kath. Nobody's forcing you. The best thing about journaling is you are the person who puts together the program for your journaling. How you do it, what you write about, what you read, it is your show. Annette, that's a great comment, and she's right. Look at this, just in time. That is a cat, and she is in a basket. All right, everyone, have a great day, all right? I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. We will see you all later. Have a great day. God bless. You're a good kitty.